Alrighty, and welcome back everyone to my channel. Here I'm just going to be covering a little bit on the Legend Trial mode. So I've already done two other videos, one on the Tower of Nature, one on the Tower of Eternity. So today I'm going to be covering the Tower of Will, which is the Maulers. Most of these are done for the resources for the hero essence, as well as the additional acorns that are helped to build the characters inside of that particular faction. So there were some interesting gimmicks between all of them. In the Graveborn Tower, I cleared it without using, because there's no healers, so we didn't use a healer, but actually in the Tower of Nature, I didn't use any tanks, just because my granny was such low ascension that it was not viable for me at the time. But in the Tower of Will, this one was actually, I believe, my first one that I cleared, and I think it should be the first one that is cleared for most of other players who do this mode, just because Odie it's a hyper carry for most players, so it's something that is just a little bit easier to build, as well as if you are free to play, the Mauler faction is a little bit stronger. Well, I say stronger, but I mean it in the sense that you're able to push a little bit higher than where you would be normally in a campaign mode. So I typically ran my team would be something looking like this. Sometimes I would swap these two places depending on how the enemy is set up. Typically you will receive a little bit more damage in this upper left quadrant than in this bottom right quadrant. So sometimes I'll put my Odie down here just so it's a little bit more damage. If I split it up like this is also a good split as well. Instead of Shakir, because I know not a lot of people will have him, but people will have a Kruger, and so sometimes you'll run him like this. So he'll be up, and that way they'll take the aggro. Sometimes I'll swap him like this. Mauler probably has some of the most options as far as what you could do. Also, instead of Kruger, Coco is rather good here, so I'd run something like this instead. That way Brutus is taking the bulk of the damage, and then Antandra is coming up and then taking the neck a little bit here, and it's just stalling for Odie. But one of the tricks with the Mauler in particular is using Odie's ults manually. That helps progress, I think, through these harder stages in the Mauler tower a little bit faster than in some of the other towers. The final thing that was used for me was actually Reese, and some of them I just was lacking a good AoE character. Most of the Mauler faction is primarily single target, so Brutus has a slight AoE on his ult, but he just doesn't do enough damage. And then Reese has a little bit of AoE on some of the ult as well. So as far as the actual artifact used here, I actually used the Iron Wall spell for, I don't know, maybe 30-40% of the floors. And then I used Confining spell was quite a bit of rest of them. But I also used the Awakening spell on here, despite having Smokey, just to keep my front line alive a little bit longer. Because it's just, all I'm really doing is just trying to stall for as long as possible for my Odie to just finish everybody off. So sometimes there was a lot of burst damage, and so I would use Iron Wall spell, but if it was a lot of AoE damage, then sometimes I would use the Awakening spell. One final honorable mention is if you do randomly have a Seth built up, he's actually fairly decent in this, just because he does good follow-up, and he's good at helping to set up for Odie here. Kind of straightforward. This is the positioning guide, so I hope this helps you guys. Not really, a high priority to complete the faction tower, but it does, every little bit helps, especially with the hero asset. I hope this helps you guys out, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.